Welcome back. In this lesson, we'll use dry and watercolor pencils to achieve softness in our paintings. Here's what you'll be learning: how to blend transitions, blurring background colors, working with watercolor pencils to quickly establish color foundation and create a more transparent look. Let's look at how we can soften the look of our paintings. Here's a rose that I'll be using to demonstrate techniques in this lesson. We've provided a reference photo in your class materials if you'd like to use it, or you can always work with your own flower. Don't forget, I'm not doing a step-by-step on this exact rose, but it is perfect for the techniques I'll be teaching. So let's look at some areas where we want to achieve a softer look. We've got some petals here with transitions that we want to achieve. You'll see that these petals are very soft, very luminous looking, but we also need to have contrast. So in the middle, in the very center, you'll see a very deep reddish orange, and that is a bit of our shadowing there, and we need to transition that smoothly into the yellow portion of the petal. And likewise, on this large petal above that, you'll see a yellow center there that needs to be transitioned into the pink areas above that. So I'll be teaching you how to do that. Additionally, there's some blurring in the background. I don't want these two areas, the leaf up top and the yellow petal beneath, I don't want those to be in sharp focus. So I'm going to teach you how to blur the outside edges into the black background. Let me show you another example of the blurring in the background that I'm talking about. In this painting of purple pansies, we've got a big blurred background section in the upper left behind the top flower. And the reason for that is to push the main subjects forward. I want to blur it so that your top flower just really comes forward, and additionally have sharp edges on that top petal right there. So in order to do that, it's very simple. It's just pulling purple color into the black area and just blending it and blurring it. This is a fairly busy composition, but the blurring creates separation between the background and the main subject, which is a very clear petal. We've got that very strong petal line right there. So that's what we're doing. We're creating dimension with the blurring in the background and with the sharp rendered petal in the foreground. So let's get our pencils and I'll show you how to achieve this softness. So let me demonstrate how to get smooth transitions from darker colors into the lighter colors of the petals. I'm going to be working on the rose here, a small section of one of the larger petals. Typically, when I outline a rose, I will use a lighter pencil color, a light pink or a light yellow. But for camera purposes, I have a brighter pink so you can see the edging a little bit better. So I'm going to start right about here, and I'm starting with a light yellow pencil. This is establishing the lightest color that I see, and I'm going to color it all the way up to the top of the petal. Just smooth strokes in the direction of the petal, and my pressure is about a 2 out of 5. I start with the lightest color because I'm going to build density, add darker colors as I go along. If I started with a darker color and I realized that it was too dark, it takes too much time to lighten that up, and too many layers of white pencil and too much pressure to restore it to the hue that I want. Okay, now that I have a little bit of yellow down, I'm going to pink it up a little bit. Pink it up with my blush pink. And that's a fairly light pink in the palette of Prismacolor. Going over the whole thing. Don't forget to go in the direction of the petal. It really makes the finished result look more natural. I'm going to kick it up a notch with some more pink. This pencil is called Pink. And this is my third layer. I usually feel comfortable beginning to burnish with my white pencil after I have about 3 layers on there, because that gives me something to work with. Then I can create some good texture because I've got 3 juicy layers to work with. Okay, now I've got some good color on there. And I'll take my white pencil and I will start to press a little harder and start blending those 3 colors together into something that is going to be lighter. That's okay. We're just changing the texture a little bit, moving towards that sleek surface. Instead of my strokes being rather harsh and straight, I'm using a bit of an elliptical movement here to blend the section together. Okay, so obviously that's quite light, but it's the texture that I want. Now I'm going to throw a little bit of orange on there. Orange is going to pop out our color. And it goes on, it just slides on just like butter because I've established a real sleek surface, a polished surface. My texture is very sleek and smooth. The more I press with that white pencil, the smoother it becomes, the more luminous the petal will look. Now I'm going rather quickly. I do tend to take a long time when I work, and I want you to feel encouraged to do that as well. Colored pencil drawing and colored pencil painting can be a very slow process, and that's okay. People say it's a very meditative thing. So feel free to meditate. Okay, so now I have this basic look of a pinky yellowy orange petal. And what I want to do is I want to have a darker orange right about here, reddish orange, and then graduate it into a lighter pink up there. So I'm going to take a pencil called Pumpkin Orange, and this is a brownish orange. And I'm just going to add it right about here with a little bit of pressure, maybe a 4. Actually, that's a lot of pressure, but just pressing down a little bit. Going up a little less than halfway. And that doesn't have to be too even. Throw in some poppy red. I'm adding poppy red here just to add a little bit of an additional color, because once I blend all this, it's just yet another happy color to be blended. Okay, now I'm going to blend all of this together, not press so hard on the interior, because I want to preserve that brighter color. And I'm using my white pencil to blend the edges into the middle of that petal. Blending, blending, blending. Soft touch here, a little bit more pressure at the ends to bring it into the middle of the petal. If you have too hard of an edge on your original, feel free to use that white pencil to just soften it out. Just blend and blur it out. Okay, so now I've got some orange moving into that. I'm thinking, gee, maybe I need to add a little yellow to that, throw in some yellow. But the main thing is I need to lighten up the middle of this, heading right out to the exterior edge, because I'm going to lay some pink on top of that. And now my pressure is a little bit heavier. I'm going to say it's a 5 out of 5. Pushing down because I want to prepare it for the pink. But before I put the pink on, I think I want to add one more coat of orange just to bring it all together. And it will be a soft application of orange, and I'm moving it right into that darker orange, just for a nice gradation of color. And then I'll pop some pink on. Right now I'm using my pink pencil, just kind of random pink that's going to go into the orange. At this point I've burnished it so that I need to press a little harder on my pink. I'm not really looking at my photo as much as saying, gee, where do I want pink on my original? Where do I want to really push the pink in? And then now I'm going to blend it with my white pencil to bring it all together. So we have pink up there, pressing down into the middle where the orange is, bringing it just into the dark section. And I'm just looking to get a nice transition here of a natural looking petal. And then soft, soft, soft over this with a very light touch so that it's not so harsh looking. There you go. We have a transition from an extreme dark into a mid-tone into our lighter pink. So what we have is we have 3 different sections of color. We've got that darker orange, we've got the mid-tone of the orange, and we've got the pink. And by using the pencil, the white pencil, we're blending it all together so it's a more natural looking petal. So I just talked about how to create a subtle transition from darker color to lighter color within the petals of a flower. I'd like to talk about now where there's more of a dramatic transition. In the background you'll see that we've got dark green leaves and a blurred yellow petal. We need to keep that blurred effect but make it look realistic on our painting. So that comes down to pulling color from the black background into the petal and also dragging a little bit of color from the petal into that black background as well. So let me see if I can just show you how to do that. I'm starting right now with the base color that I see. This is called yellow ochre. It's a great pencil that I've also used in the interior of the flower. And I'm covering the entire area with this yellow ochre. Because I don't see any petal directional lines, I'm just putting the color down in a circular fashion. My pressure is about a 3 out of 5 because I want to quickly lay color on the entire area and make it fairly dense. Be careful when you have a yellow or a pink, one of those colors next to the black background. It's not time to drag black in yet. It'll just muddy it up. Okay, I'm going to green it up a little bit with some lime peel. This will tone it down. And I'm covering the entire area. Not ready to drag color in just yet. We need to establish the petal first. I believe that yellow section is a petal from another flower that's behind our pink flower. I like it there because it's just a bright pop of yellow color that's blurred. I think it's interesting. And because I've cropped this composition fairly tightly, that yellow section is a nice diagonal to the green leaf, the light green leaf that will also be blurred in the upper right hand corner. So I think it's a pleasing composition. So we're going to keep it. And now I have that yellowy green look. I'm going to use a little bit of dark umber to throw in that deeper shadow that we see at the top part and the bottom part. Dark umber is a good pencil. It's one of the darker browns. It can be relied upon to give us a fast, dark, deep brown color. Dark umber really gets the job done. There's another pencil called dark brown. Never gets it done for me. Dark umber just jumps right in, makes it happen. So now I'm going down here, adding some of that brown. Getting there. Okay, now I look at this. I compare this to my reference photo and I say, still a little bright. I'm just going to take it down one more step with a pencil that's called olive green, and then we'll blend it all together. Colorless blender will do the job here. I do like using my white pencil to blend colors together, but when you have an obviously dark area that you're working on, there's really no point in lightening that up. Just use your colorless blender. That's a nice wax pencil that, with the pressure, will melt those colors together pretty well. Okay, so I've got this muted yellow flower, and now I'm going to start blending it together on the interior with my colorless blender. I'm going to go a little slower, small circles, just get some of that pressure working on the wax to start heating it up and just blending everything into each other so the interior of the petal starts looking blurred. Little small strokes, pulling color into each other, or I should say pulling colors into each other for a nice blend. Getting the crumbs off so they won't freckle my composition here. Now that I have the interior of this blurred petal squared away, I'm going to bring the edges of the petal into the edges of the black background. And this is where we're going to do that blending and blurring. So I'm going to take a dark green. I'm going to be using dark green, dark umber, and black. And I'm going to be starting here, taking my dark green, pushing it into the black, pushing it into the yellow flower, the yellow petal, and just kind of riding that center line, making circular strokes. I'm going to do it all the way around. So I'm pulling in some of the black, and I'm landing on some of that lighter green inside there. Circular stroke is the key. Dragging color from the outside into the interior of this yellow petal. I chose this color because there is a significant amount of green in this yellow, and green works well as a segue into the black background. And now I'm going to use my dark umber just to darken that up a little bit more. My pressure is not as intense, but I'm still pulling black in, and I'm still using that circular motion to drag color into the interior. Okay, so now you're going to see that color that I've brought in, and now we need to blur that even a little bit more, and I'll use my colorless blender on the inside to just very carefully blur that into the yellowish green section. Just the little edges there. Now you could go on and you could really finesse this and polish this up very nicely, but what I want to do here is just show you the technique. I would probably spend a little bit more time on this, but the technique is that circular stroke, dragging the black in and then pulling some of the color from the yellow area out and just kind of meeting halfway and then blurring that section down. So it's just a process until you feel it looks realistic enough. Now I'm going to show you how to use watercolor pencils, they're often called water-soluble pencils, to get some quick washes of color and also to use them to do an entire petal. I'm going to start with this petal, this bud petal right in here, which is very vibrant. It's bright yellow with some red at the bottom. I'm going to start with a watercolor pencil that's titled Orange. The good thing about Prismacolor is that they're very consistent. They will call a watercolor pencil orange, and they also have a matching dry pencil called Orange. I'm laying down this color, and I'm going to add another color over that, and then put some water to it. Never splash the water on there. You want to have a damp brush, not an overly wet brush. You want to put it on your paper to blot it a little bit first. This paper that I use, Smooth Bristol, stands up very well under watercolor applications. In doing this rose, I find that it's best to start in the center. A rose is like a puzzle. Each little petal, as it expands into a larger rose with the larger petals, it's like a puzzle, and so by starting in the center, it keeps you from being confused as you do one little piece at a time, and it just comes together very nicely. I don't recommend doing random petals. Start at the center and have some consistency as you're moving out. So this is our first layer of watercolor pencil. This is an orange. And as you can see in the photo, there's some bright yellow involved here. So let's grab a yellow pencil. This is called Spanish orange, and now I'm going to lay that on top. This will give me some nice yellow. I'm pressing down fairly hard. I'm giving it about 4 out of 5 pressure, and the reason for that is that I want to cover it completely, firmly, get some nice, dense color in there. Another option that you can use is to take one color, layer it on your petal, use a damp brush over that, and you will have a very nice, soft base layer upon which to use your dry pencils. They do intermingle very well. If you are using watercolor, I do recommend that you're very consistent throughout your composition. Use the watercolor base for all of your petals. Don't just pick and choose. I think it gives a different look if you're having all dry colors on one petal and then some watercolor on another petal. I think you should make that decision in the beginning and stick with it throughout the whole flower. Okay, so I've got some yellow on there. I'm just going to add one more color. I'm just going to put a little bit more orange on, and then we'll touch it with a damp brush. And we'll see what happens. Sometimes it can be very unpredictable. And if it's really important to have a certain shade, a certain blend, you might want to try it on a separate piece of white paper first. Okay. We've got this pretty well filled in. I'm going to take my brush, and this brush is just your basic 5 round watercolor brush. I'm going to touch it. I'm going to go very slowly because I want to avoid streaking. I'm going to do it in the direction of the petal, and kind of on its side, I'm just bringing it down. I'm starting to dry out a little bit, but that's okay. Just go back and get some more water on it. And this time I put a little bit too much water on. But it doesn't hurt anything. And what this is doing is it's taking the yellow and the orange and just kind of blending it all together and giving me a nice surface. Again, this is an option. You can do straight colored pencil, just everything is dry, or you can do a combination of watercolor pencil with dry, or you could do it all in watercolor. I think the best way is just to play around first on a white piece of paper, see what effect you like the best, and then be consistent with your choice. So we're almost done here. It's very vibrant, it's a vivid color, and now it'll take a few minutes to dry. It's important to have it completely dry before you add another color. And at this point, I would add a dry color. If I add another watercolor color and put water on it, it will probably streak it. Maybe while we're waiting for this to dry, I'll show you what I mean. Let's take that little tiny petal in the middle. I'm going to say this one right here. I'm not going to draw it or paint it so that it looks like the picture, but I'm just going to show you what happens if we're not careful. Streaking can occur, and you probably won't like the result. Okay, so we're putting down some orange, we'll put down some yellow, and now we're going to add some red, and I want you to see what happens when we add a color that's a little more jarring than what we were working with. Red is nice. We see red inside the buds here, inside the interior of those, those little petals. I'm going to dampen a brush and let's see what happens. And you'll see that it's a very obvious streaking, so you just have to be a little careful and a little accepting of that. When you use a brighter color that's significantly different from the colors that you've laid down, you will probably have a little risk of streaking. If I had used perhaps another orange, it would have blended nicely, but the red was just a little too jarring. Well, everything has dried, and now I'm ready to apply the dry color in the at the base area. One thing I want to mention is don't be impatient when your watercolor is drying. You'll see some wet spots. Let it dry. If you lift it up with a piece of paper towel or tissue, you're going to be lifting up color as well, and that will be a little challenging to restore color to that area. So very softly, I'm going to add some red at the base. Very, very gently, because this is dry color, and because I'm not going to use a colorless blender or my white pencil, I'm just going to blend this in very nicely. You can use a white pencil to blend. It just doesn't work as well with a watercolor base. Watercolor pencils are a lot of fun to use. You don't always know what color you're going to get, and that's why I encourage you to practice on a piece of white paper. But it sure takes a lot of time away from getting your layers down. With dry colored pencils, it can take a few hours. Honestly, with a good sized petal, it might take me 3 hours to get it to where I'm happy. When you use watercolor as a wash to get that first initial layer down, and maybe the second layer, it goes pretty quickly from there. So you could finish this on your own. This would take me a little while to get it the way I like it, but I will be sweeping the red all the way up to the top and bringing it into a little bit more of the center area of this yellow petal. So there you have it. We've tried a little bit of watercolor. We've tried dry on top of it. Have a little fun with it. Get some pencils of your own and start layering and blending with watercolor and dry. So to recap, in this lesson we worked on blending, blurring background colors, and working with watercolor pencils. Your homework is to paint and blend a few petals with watercolor and dry pencil. In our next lesson, we'll be working on getting natural looking leaves. See you there.